So maybe I'm not going to watch all 32 WrestleManias. This one was kind of a dud.
You're watching So Awkward. This is Freddy Krueger saying hi.
Hey, it's Don and welcome back to So Awkward. It's WrestleMania Wednesday again, and this time we're talking about WrestleMania II, which was not the greatest WrestleMania of all time. So WrestleMania 1 was a big gamble for Vince McMahon and WWF. They put all their money into this giant event. They had all these celebrities. It was on closed circuit around the world, or at least around the country, and it was a huge success. So obviously they had to do a sequel, WrestleMania 2. And I think they tried to go bigger and better, but it didn't really work out that well. Technically, there's a lot of blunders. The matches aren't as good. The commentary was weird and kind of terrible in places. The celebrities weren't as fantastic or memorable. It was kind of a dud. I mean, there were still some really good matches and some talent there because, it's old school WWF. But for the most part, if WrestleMania 2 had been the first WrestleMania, there would never have been another WrestleMania because it was weird. Let's get right into it. April 7th, 1986. So I was just a couple weeks shy of my 9th birthday. I didn't watch it at the time because I think it was only available in closed circuit. There wasn't really pay-per-view yet. I saw it later on, probably on VHS. Google VHS if you don't know what that is. So the first WrestleMania was at Madison Square Garden, which of course is the most famous and beloved arena in the entire country. Perhaps even the entire world, I don't know. So what were they going to do with their next WrestleMania? How do you top the world's most famous sports arena? Well, they did 3 different arenas. So that's right. So instead of having one venue, they split the card across 3 venues. It sounds great on paper. I'm sure Vince's like, well, instead of having one, let's just have 3. Because they sold a lot more tickets, theoretically. Instead of selling out one venue, they sold out 3 venues. But then the fans at each venue only saw 1/3 of the show, at least live. And then I guess a screen came down. It started in New York, they had like an hour. And then a screen came down and they watched what happened in Chicago. And then in Chicago, a screen came down and they watched what happened in LA. But I guess in LA, the screen went up and then they watched the main event. Just weird. It's hard to explain. It was hard to wrap my brain around just watching it. It took me a while to figure out, oh wait, there's three different venues because they didn't really explain it that well. And I think because they were spread across 3 arenas, which if you're watching it 30 years later, it just looks like a ring in an arena. We're a long way from each WrestleMania having its own visual style and really looking visually amazing. Back then it just looked like a wrestling ring. But there were a lot of technical problems, like audio was weird. Audio went in and out. They had weird voiceovers that I think were cued wrong, and it was just weird. So it started in New York, and Ray Charles sang "America the Beautiful," and that was pretty great. And then they introduced the commentary team for New York, which was Vince McMahon and Susan St. James, which is weird. As long as you have Google open, Google Susan St. James. I don't know if she's more famous for Kate and Allie or McMillan and Wife. Which is to say, I don't know if she's less famous for Kate and Allie or McMillan and Wife, but anyway, she was on both of those shows. But why was she doing commentary for WrestleMania 2? It'd be like if at WrestleMania 3 they had one of the 2 broke girls doing commentary. And not even the hot one with the big boobs, they've got like the skinny blonde one. Just, why? What? Vince really had to carry the commentary, and luckily Vince is pretty good at commentary. But still, it was really weird, and it just threw off the whole thing. Getting right into it, the first match was Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, versus Don the Rock Morocco. And if you remember, Paul Orndorff was in the main event of the first WrestleMania, and now he's opening the second WrestleMania, it's a little bit of a step down. But it was a pretty decent old school match. I love Paul Orndorff, he's great. it had a kind of a weird ending where I think they were both counted out or disqualified or something. I couldn't tell what happened because they never really said what happened. There was some kind of delay or technical problem, so they didn't announce it. Vince threw to this promo or interview with Mr. T, and then during the promo with Mr. T, that's when they finally had the announcement of the official word of who won the match. But you couldn't hear it because it was during the interview with Mr. T. That's what I'm talking about, just weird technical problems. The second match was George the Animal Steel against the Intercontinental Champion Randy the Macho Man Savage. It does get better than that. It was a short but fun match, classic, crazy antics by George the Animal Steel, crazy antics by Macho Man. These two, I remember these two feuding a lot when I was a kid. And they were always fun, and they always did something weird and unexpected, and it was always just a real crowd pleaser, and that was good. After that, we had a match with Jake the Snake Roberts making his WrestleMania debut. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he was at WrestleMania 1. Against a guy named George Wells. Yeah, I don't remember him either. And then the New York main event was a boxing match with Roddy Piper versus Mr. T. This one was okay. It started kind of boring. I mean, it was just a generic boxing match, not necessarily a great boxing match. Wrestling works as something that's, a work that's scripted and planned out. Boxing, not so much. It's just people throwing fake punches. But then it picked up at the end because Rowdy Piper started cheating and body slammed him and just beat the crap out of Mr. T. And that was great. But I don't know why they had a boxing match. I'm sure at the time there was some storyline that built it up and explained why they were boxing instead of wrestling. I'm assuming it's because Mr. T, as a human being, was more comfortable boxing than wrestling. He probably wasn't. After the first WrestleMania, we knew he wasn't a very good wrestler. But they brought him back. Maybe they brought him back and said, hey, we'll let you box this time. I have no idea. All I know is it was weird and not a great match. But Piper did his best. He's always fun. And then the curtain comes down on New York, and we go to Chicago. Curtain rises at the Rosemont horizon. Here, the commentary team was a little bit better. We had Mean Gene Okerlund, Gorilla Monsoon, and Kathy Lee Crosby. At least we had two real wrestling commentators and the token starlet. She was a little bit better than Susan St. James because she was at least a TV host and knew how to talk. But still, I don't know why she was there. The first match was for the Ladies' Championship. The Fabulous Moolah, an icon, versus Velvet McIntyre, who I don't remember. Moolah beat her. After that, we had a weird gimmick. It was a flag match with the Soviet Nikolai Volkov versus some Marine-looking guy named Corporal Kirshner, who I have no memory of. So the winner gets to raise their flag in the ring, which didn't make any sense because they both came to the ring waving their flags and they walked around with their flags. But anyway, the American won. But then things picked up with the 20-man battle royal, which was great. It was kind of weird, and it was a mix of wrestlers and football players, including Refrigerator Perry, who got a huge pop when he came out, maybe the biggest of the night. The crowd went crazy for him. You got to remember, this was right after the Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl, which was the biggest Super Bowl of all time. It's certainly the only one I've ever watched. The referees were Dick Butkus and Too Tall Jones. And the guest timekeeper, and get your Google ready for this one too, was Clara Peller. I don't know if anybody remembers her. She was the little old lady who said, "Where's the beef?" on the Wendy's commercials. Clara Peller. I knew that. I didn't have to Google that. Weird. I'm not proud of that, but yeah. And along with Fridge and all the football players, we had people. Bruno Sammartino was in there. Andre the Giant was in there. Bret Hart, along with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the Hart Foundation, making their WrestleMania debut. The Iron Sheik. So it was a pretty good mix of pretty good talent wrestlers and a lot of, I'm assuming, well-known football players. The final three were Andre the Giant and the Hart Foundation. which was really fun. But, of course, Andre prevailed, as well he should. And then I guess the main event for Chicago was a tag team title match between the British Bulldogs versus Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus Beefcake. This was really fun. This was a really good match. This was one of the best of the night. Can't beat the British Bulldogs. They're one of my favorite tag teams of all time. Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith, two of my favorite wrestlers. Versus two, Greg the Hammer Valentine is a great wrestler. Brutus Beefcake is okay. The Bulldogs came to the ring with Ozzy Osbourne. I guess he's British. They said, oh, they're all from Manchester, so they're friends. Sure, I don't know. But the Bulldogs won, and they got the tag team titles. So that was really exciting, and it was fun, and the crowd went crazy. And then curtain falls on Chicago, and we go out west to the LA Memorial Sports Arena, where the commentary team for that one, and you thought the first two were weird. Jesse the Body Ventura, okay. Lord Alfred Hayes, okay. And Elvira. The first match in LA was adorable Adrian Adonis versus Uncle Elmer. Weird. Just two weird, gimmicky, old school wrestlers. Not a great match. This one was kind of dumb. For curiosity's sake, it was interesting. Oh, that's what wrestling used to be. Not even, I think even by 1987, that was probably outdated. And people were confused about, like, who are these people? But, yeah, I mean, at one point, that's what wrestling was like. It was just two big fat guys hitting each other. After that, we had the Funk Brothers, Terry and Haas, versus Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog. This one was good. This one was great. These are four great wrestlers, four great old school, even really good technical wrestlers, told a great story, did lots of great moves, crowd went crazy. If you didn't see JYD, Junkyard Dog, in his prime, in front of a live crowd, he was a rock star. He was huge. Everybody. Hogan's the most famous, and Andre the Giant is also beloved and famous, but there was something about Junkyard Dog. Somehow he was more human than Hogan and Andre. I mean, Andre was a giant. Everybody was in awe of him. Hogan was a superstar. But Junkyard Dog just seemed like the kind of guy, like if you met him at a bar, he'd be just really cool and want to hang out with you. He just seemed down to earth and just like a real, legit brawler. Anyway, this one was just a lot of fun and a really satisfying, crowd-pleasing match. Terry Funk. Terry Funk is still wrestling. Pretty sure. He hasn't retired yet. As of last year, he was still wrestling. I think he's like 70-something. No joke. Terry Funk. He's a badass. And then we had the real main event. The main event in LA, which I guess is the whole main event, which was a cage match with Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy. Classic. This was a great way to end WrestleMania II, and it almost made you forget about how most of the matches were boring and the commentary sucked, and there were just lots of technical gaffes throughout. But King Kong Bundy and Hulk Hogan, great. I remember that feud from when I was a kid. I remember being terrified of Bundy. I mean, not great technical wrestling by either of these two, but who wants technical wrestling? It's a cage match. It's a cage match. It's a fight between good and evil. Hulk Hogan versus a monster, King Kong Bundy. As a kid, I loved it, and as an adult, I enjoyed it, mostly for nostalgia. It wasn't the most exciting match I've ever seen. It wasn't a great display of athleticism, but it was a pretty good story that they told, and it was a lot of fun. And these are icons from my childhood, so I enjoyed that. They had a couple more celebrities in the main event. Nobody on the caliber of Liberace and Muhammad Ali. The guest timekeeper was Ricky Schroeder, child star of the sitcom Silver Spoons, and when they introduced him, the crowd booed. It was this little kid, and the crowd just started booing him. It was great. That was maybe the best part of WrestleMania II. And then the guest referee was Robert Conrad, actor. I understand why they got him. He kind of made sense because, nobody remembers Robert Conrad. But at the time, he was like a fitness guy. He was known for, being really fit. and being in his athleticism, did his own stunts on Wild Wild West and his movies. But then after they introduced him, he was, because it was a cage match, he was outside. I don't think they ever showed him again. He had no part in anything. He didn't do anything. So they spent all this money, which probably wasn't that much money, even in 1987, for Robert Conrad, and they just... At least Muhammad Ali got in the ring. He punched out Roddy Piper. Robert Conrad. I was kind of excited to see Robert Conrad. I like Robert Conrad. I'm a Robert Conrad fan. But yeah, they did nothing with him. But that's kind of the... That was kind of WrestleMania 2 in a nutshell. They had all these big ideas, some gimmick matches, 3 different venues, celebrities, but none of it was really done that well. They had too many technical gaffes, probably because their crew was spread among 3 different cities across the country. They had celebrities, but they were used poorly. Ricky Schroeder? The Where's the Beef lady? What were they thinking? But, I mean, it's still WrestleMania. It's still, you still got Hogan, JYD, Tito Santana, Jake the Snake, Roddy Piper, some really great wrestlers. The Hart Foundation. Bret Hart is my all-time favorite wrestler. We'll see him more in a lot better matches than this one, but I think if I had to pick a favorite match, it may have been the Battle Royal. Although I also really like the British Bulldog, Greg Hammer, Valentine, Brutus Beefcake match. That one was really fun. On a technical level, that was probably the best match. But the Battle Royal may have been the most entertaining. If you love wrestling and you want to sit down and watch every WrestleMania, yeah, watch WrestleMania 2. But if you just want to watch a really fun wrestling pay-per-view, even something historically significant, skip this one. It wasn't that good. The matches are going to get a lot better here on out, I think. Things can only get better from here, right? Right? Anyway, I'm sure we're not going to see Susan St. James again, which is fine. I don't just mean in WrestleMania, I mean ever. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next Wednesday.